Hello? Okay, got it. Good evening, everyone. Today, thank you. All right, good evening again. We call the meeting to order at 6:35 p.m. I'm going to call the roll of the board members. All right. Mrs. Maxwell?
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. O'Neill? Thank you, sir. Mrs. Springs? Mr. Sanchez? Mrs. Bryant? Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Coleman? Thank you, ma'am. I am here. Did I miss anyone? Oh, Mr. Melton. How you doing, sir? Mr. Melton?
Good, I'm present.
Thank you, sir. All right, that form, we can go ahead and start our meeting. All right, so we'll just pick up on our agenda. First, I want to say thank you to everyone here. So, thank you for taking the time to be here. It's good to see you again. Happy New Year, all of that good stuff. Um, so, what I'd like to do is to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves first, and then we'll go around and introduce board members. And if you'd like to have anybody that's with you introduce themselves as well, by all means, so we can start down there.
George Nichols, Assistant Chief of Police.
Thank you, Chief Nick. Thank you.
Sheriff Christine Wiseman, Office of the Sheriff.
Thank you.
Sheriff John Carr.
Thank you, Sheriff Carr. Anybody else? Oh, okay.
Two other assistant sheriffs. I know they're not right where the mic is. So we have Assistant Sheriff Stanford Moore.
Okay.
He's responsible for our Bureau of Field Operations. And then we have our newly Assistant Sheriff Marcus Jones,
Okay.
who's Assistant Sheriff for our Bureau of Administration.
And then we'll start with the board members. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
President Gary Yancey, Fraternal Order Police Lodge 112, representing the Deputy Sheriffs.
Good evening, President Sharice Carpenter, representing the proud men and women of Prince George's County Police Department, FOP Lodge 89.
Calvin Brinkley, First Vice President, FOP Lodge 89.
All right. Thank you. Start down there with Mr. O'Neill.
Earl O'Neill. Sheriff, why you got, if you could see somebody going to attack you, might got other people.
Normally I get on me when I'm always by myself all the time. See, so now I brought everybody else, especially with something like this. You know that because you always see me by myself.
Earl O'Neill.
Thank you, sir.
Lafayette Melton, resident of Upper Marlboro.
Yes, I'm Sheila Bryant. I live in Upper Marlboro as well. Dr. Andrea Coleman, and I reside in Bowie.
Stephanie Maxwell, and I reside in Laurel. I'm in Fort Washington.
And I'm Kelvin Duvall. I'm in District Heights, Maryland. All right, so you guys have been presenting questions. So next up on our agenda is the board's activities and updates. Do we have any updates, Mrs. Rose? Do you have anything, ma'am? Does any of the board members have any updates?
Just briefly want to state that we were invited and we plan to participate. This is for the outreach committee. We do plan to attend the LGBT Pride Walk. Have a table there, so
Okay.
information. And there are other events planned for the quarter, but we'll get into that at our next meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Chief's activities and updates. So don't everybody speak at once. Looks like you have anything. Have any updates coming that you may want the public know about, participation or anything like that?
I'll start now. I make sure to work. I'll make
Okay,
sure to
yes,
work.
sir.
So, want to start off just from the community outreach standpoint. We're getting ready to have another session of our Citizens Academy. Seems to be very successful as we're trying to get our citizens to understand what we do at the Office of the Sheriff. We also are coordinating with the court services as we've been working with our youth, and we've actually been having them to work and come inside of the courthouse. So we partnered with Judge Hall Johnson and District Court and the Prince George's County Public School System, in which we actually have them come in. We've had two schools come in during the regular day hours and are actually able to go through a process as far as decision making. We talk about the court cases and stuff like that. We also do have some participation and partnership with the Prince George's County Police, as they would actually have a officer simulate a traffic stop. The canine officers would then come from the deputy sheriffs, actually show that, hey, if you're riding with a vehicle with somebody and you don't know what they have in the car, they could have controlled dangerous substance. And it goes through that process. So you have the state's attorneys also involved, the public defenders. It's really trying to make sure that our youth are able to understand exactly their choices and consequences. So that's one thing, or two things. The Citizen Academy is something separate, but then we have our courts in school, which again, as we're coming back, getting ready for spring break, we will have another session. And the last session was postponed because of the snow or the delay. So that will be coming up. We're also getting ready for our STEM summer camp. It's a free summer camp that we offer. That is with a partnership with the Prince George's County Public Schools as well. And then we will be doing, again, this will be our second inaugural summer camp and STEM camp. And that is after school and after hours. In the summer, it will be free for all kids. It's a sports league. With that, we actually have some education, and we also have some other resources dealing with domestic violence, dealing with mental health, as that's been really our focus in the community. So those are things that we have coming up. You should be seeing flyers on our website. If you don't know the website, it is pgsheriff.com. Please go to it, and you'll see a lot of our events as we have coming up in the spring, and knowing that our kids need something in the summer. So, and we have started again our Silver Circle, in which we actually go to our senior communities, or I'm sorry, our seasoned community. I don't want to say senior. Our Silver Circles is the reason why we call it Silver Circle, in which we actually go to them. We talk about fraud. We talk about crime trends. They seem to love it. They love the engagement, and then they become part of everything that we have in the community. So please be on the lookout for that as well, and that is countywide.
Thank you, Sheriff Carr. And again, I did take the class, I believe it was 24 for the Sheriff's Academy, Citizen. 2. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great information.
I have a
Great
question. The question is for the school sessions, sports and school sessions. Is it district court, circuit court, or both?
It is district court.
Okay.
So district court has it to where, especially when you're looking at the youth offenders, you have that in the district court. So I don't know if many people know that there had been a change in who was overseeing the juvenile court. It's now Judge Rowe, who is actually overseeing the juvenile courts. But this gives the district court the opportunity to really engage with our youth. The Prince George's County Public School actually selects the 2 schools. So it doesn't come from us. They will select the 2 schools that would actually come. They identify those individuals. The kids seem to love it. So I think it's a program that definitely we're trying to expand, just to make sure that we're able to do more and more, whether it be quarterly or whether we can actually try to just have a session, not just during a quarter, but just throughout the whole school year, where we're consistently getting them in.
Thank you.
Those are great. Thank you for your interaction with the community, both young and old. That's a great start. That's really kind of what we do too. So try and get into the community and reach everybody. So thank you for that work.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get into the questions, and we'll start with mental. Oh, PGPD matters too, right?
Got a little something to talk
Chief
about.
Nichols, I sincerely apologize.
It's okay. Taking this stuff.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, sir.
No, I'm leaving anyway.
Okay.
No, thank you. Just to share a couple things. So our Citizen Police Academy actually started on Monday, the 23rd of this month. So we're very excited about that. As you know, we continue to do that. So also, I'm excited because prior to coming here, we actually just started our Youth Advisory Council. I have about 35 young adults that I just got through speaking to and telling them how significant of an impact they can actually make because they're going to be ambassadors to their community. They have a very unique position of where they'll be sitting in a classroom or on a playground or something, and one of their classmates may perceive something or believe that they saw something on TV and this is how police operate, but they have an inside 5-foot view and can actually say that's not the way it works. So we're very excited about that with the Youth Advisory Council. We also started our co-responder unit. So our co-responder units, we have one officer and a clinician from the health department riding together to follow up on calls that repeat calls from people who are in mental crisis and even domestic violence. So we did start that last month as a pilot. It's only one right now, but we're looking to expand that. So that too, we're just waiting to see how the fruit bears. So hopefully we can report out on that maybe the next meeting. I'll let you know how the progress is made on that. And finally, I'll share that we were just awarded a $50,000 grant for domestic violence. The first time that the county's ever been, the agency, police department's been awarded this grant from the county council. So we're looking to partner with a nonprofit to do some things to bring awareness to domestic violence and things that I need to prevent it, which we'll, of course, work with our partner, the sheriff here, and quelling domestic violence because it's very prevalent in our community for those who may not know that. So that's one of the things that actually plagues us right now. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
I have a question about the Youth Advisory Council. You said there are 5 young adults.
No, not probably I got about 35.
Oh, you said 35. So are they selected from the school or are they volunteer from the school?
So it's a little bit of both. We put it out there to the schools and everything, and they volunteer, and then we bring them in. That's actually ran through our Community First division, and they're the ones who solicited the information. Same as like with our Citizens Police Academy, and we bring them in, teach them about the police department, and interacting with the community, and just giving them kind of a bird's eye view as to what it is we do. So again, like I said, when they have their friends who, well, I know on TV they do this, they say, no, that's not what happens. They are not allowed to do that. I think that's where it starts, is for the groundwork.
And how many schools are represented?
That I have to get back to you on, but I know it's more than 5. I know it's more than 5, but I have to get you.
And those are high school students?
Yes. Yes.
I have a question also regarding the program that's in pilot, that the mental
The
health.
co-respond program.
What's the name of the program?
Co-responder. Think respond together.
Is that different from the mental health line?
Yes. 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 So you have the mental health line, which is still those are clinicians that come out after the fact. The co-respondent, we're looking more so to address continuous calls for service. I'll give you a prime example. We have a young lady that has a mental issue that lives in Forestville. If you look at the call for service on her address, we've been there, I think it was 73 times in the last 6 months. So we're following up with her because sometimes the police come, they'll EPS or they'll do this, that, and the other, and then you put the problem right back out there. But now with the health department and with the police department there, and then some other resources around it, wraparound service, we can get them the help that they need and prevent those repeat calls. So that's what they're out there.
Thank you. Again, thank you for the work.
Yeah, no. Anything else, Chief Nichols?
No,
Okay, thank you, sir. So we'll go ahead and start with the line of questions that we have. We'll start with Mr. O'Neill, and everybody will just take the next one in order.
The first question we have is, the county now requires.
Can you speak it to the mic? We can't hear you.
The county,
There it is.
the county now requires officers to bid for off-duty work through Roller CAD app. Community feedback indicates some officers accept jobs but fail to show up, leaving businesses without coverage and creating public safety concerns. Can the chief help us reduce this, can the chiefs help reduce these issues by standardizing pay raise for off-duty details to prevent double booking, enforcing a policy to accept bids, binding and cancellations carry penalties, and mandating that the officer communicate a decline within 48 hours.
So I know, and it's beautiful. It's good. I had a unique position on working on both sides, sheriff and here. Retired from here, went there, came back. So I'm like a tennis ball. So roll call actually came into effect when I was during my time retired, and it's interesting because they actually tried to bring it to the sheriff's office when I was there, and we didn't want it. So let me, right, and I concur with it. I came up through the other system. We didn't use it. But let me just answer the question. So as it goes with the standardized and pay rates and all that, apparently the way roll call works is that roll call gets a percentage of the company's money. So let's say it's a $50 an hour rate. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the company has to pay $57 because $7 has to go to roll call. That's the service charge. Now, as it relates to those rates, we have nothing to do with that. The police department doesn't regulate that. That's the business, and that's the way the business is done. So we don't regulate the rates. We have nothing to do with that. Enforcing a policy that accepted bids are binding and cancellations carry penalties. Once again, the secondary employment is just that. It's a privilege. It's not a right. The police department is first. So if I book for a secondary employment position, and let's say I'm now required to work a mandatory shift on the street with my patrol district, whatever, that takes precedence over secondary employment. So you can't, there's no way I would even look at charging an officer for saying, I can't work that, I can't work for secondary employment because now I'm being held over because my shift is short or somebody didn't come in. Because again, the agency is first, secondary employment is just what it is, secondary. That's the way it works. Now, there are means in which we do put it out to where we can try to get coverage. And I'll tell you, for the most part, at times, it does work. It's nothing that's never uncovered, even to a degree where somebody might be like, well, I may be an hour or so behind because they're leaving another shift to get there. So usually it's not too much of an issue with getting coverage for these shifts. But I just want to let you know that the shift of the agency, the duties of the agency come first before secondary employment.
Okay. So that means like, and that's if the decline is because they got a first duty. I mean,
Correct.
It can't be if they just don't want to come. What happens then?
Normally what happens is, and again, usually when people sign up for secondary employment, and I also found out that our overtime, although the overtime isn't paid through that, it's still paid through the agency, but they use it for the scheduling because apparently it allows things to be, I guess, more of a fair and impartial process. So still, at the end of the day, no one would usually just say, well, I'm not coming. Usually it's like, hey, look, I got this other shift, or my child is sick or something like this. Usually a valid reason. Mm-hmm. And most of the time there's usually, hey, but it's now in the roll call app as available and someone else can sign up for it. Okay. And normally that does happen. So very seldom, and again, like I said, you correct me if I'm wrong, that there's an issue with coverage. Like I said, if a shift is from maybe 8 at night to midnight, let's say, well, they couldn't do it, and somebody says, I can get there, but I might not get there until 9. So maybe from 8 to 9, that person, that business may not have the coverage, but usually that's already discussed.
So they have to call in time so that roll call can schedule somebody else to come in.
Correct. Okay. It would then be open up in roll call, and then someone else can go in there. And then if the hours have to be adjusted, they can do that. And I think the last one is mandate and officers communicate a decline within 48 hours. Once again, like I said, the needs of the agency and our community, which comes first, that's fluid. I can tell you the chief that we have, and I've worked with him for years. He's cutting edge and forward thinking. I mean, the guy's like a machine. So if he's like, I want us to do this program, usually there's a lot of advance notice. But if someone had already scheduled a shift, but now their in roll call, but now their shift is going to have to be canceled because of a mandatory uh, uh, department sanctioned function, there'll be ample time for somebody else to cover it. But I couldn't say that they would within 48 hours. I really wouldn't want to do it because again, in the city, even in our job description, you may be called back or called in at any time due to whatever circumstances because of the line of work that we're in. If that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So as far as the standardizing pay rates, it will put more pressure on the businesses to pay more money. And that would cause an issue. Obviously, smaller businesses wouldn't be able to pay as much as larger businesses.
And if I can also piggyback too, believe it or not, a lot of businesses didn't want to go to roll call for that reason. They didn't want to pay the 7%, in which they used to just, do a 1099 or the taxes instead of paying another 7% to the company. So there's been some concern about that as well.
Yeah, because you think about some businesses, if they're a large business, they got officers 24 hours a day. That's 8% every officer for every hour that an officer's working. So some businesses are paying $3,000 in a week just for, yes. So that's the main thing about that. As far as enforcing the policy that accepted bids are binding, the officers, so each part-time or secondary employment has a designated officer that's like the schedule maker or the liaison or whatever the case may be. So oftentimes the officer can't make it. They'll notify that officer, whoever's in charge of the entire secondary employment, and then they'll reach out to find other people. So it does, like you said, it does come up with family emergencies or work schedule conflicts. So they're not just not showing up, because generally the managing officer will kick that person off and find another person if it becomes a habitual issue.
But is it also safe to assume if they couldn't find somebody, there wouldn't just be a notion? That
Correct.
The business itself could also be
Correct.
notified
Correct.
to say, hey.
Yes, there won't be coverage tonight for this reason. So, and then some of the officers that make the schedules, they'll actually just show up regardless of whatever they have going on as an obligation to that business. And as far as mandating officers communicate a decline within 48, normally they do that. Normally whether it's last minute, some people will give you weeks notice as a courtesy to that officer that's running it out of respect for that particular officer that's making the schedule or communicating with the owner or the manager of the business, like Chick-fil-A, for example. We normally communicate ahead of time, hey, someone's running late or someone won't be there, because they'll be looking for us at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Yes, as a courtesy, generally. I think that was it for that.
And the one thing I'll add is that the one benefit to the roll call app is that it did standardize our process, and it gave us an opportunity for officers to be available. So as soon, let's say, because of this meeting this evening, I couldn't work secondary employment. So let's say at 5 o'clock, I put out there, hey, I'm unable to work at Chick-fil-A. Who's available? Somebody will pick that up immediately. So it gives us the opportunity for people who are looking for opportunities to work secondary employment to pick them up almost immediately. So it's been a benefit in some ways.
Okay, thank you. Number 2? No.
So that was covered. That's one of the reasons why we were just talking before. So with the office of the sheriff, we do not require roll call. So as far as our secondary employment, it is still through the same way. A lot of our folks do work establishments that, county police or other law enforcement agencies may be a part of, and they would actually sign up through that roll call app as far as sign up, but we do not require them through the office of the sheriff to do that. Again, it's secondary. We believe that from our perspective, their agreement and them working with that third party or that other party is an agreement between those two. We are allowing them to use the county agency equipment And if there were to be an event that actually occurs, then they would actually be able to address that. Then they would actually be dealing with their actual duties as a law enforcement officer during that way. So we're not in the business of having that roll call. We're not as large as the Prince George's County Police Department. So again, I just think it wouldn't have been beneficial for our folks. They still are able to work secondary employment, still are able to supplement that income. But my most concern was, again, that is it is a privilege, and it is something that, hey, if they have something already set up, instead of having to deal with any fees or anything else, that's something that they are able to work out and agree upon as far as working those assignments.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yeah, so in light of recent statistics, I want to congratulate all of you all on the 16% drop in overall crime from 2025. Thank you for all your contributions to that. But we wanted to just know if you all had some specific things that you all have seen that have been working that could be contributing to that drop in crime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I'll tell you the first thing, and it's both community and partner agency relationships. That's exactly what it is. Our community talks to us, they call us, they tell us what's going on, which allows us to put ample resources and things into those communities to do what needs to be done to address their crime, their issues and concerns. The chief and I started an organized retail crime theft unit. One of the biggest things that we saw is that organized retail crime is a significant issue. What we were finding out is that in District 2 and Bowie, they would get hit. Then in Laurel, they would get hit. Then Target and Ellisville would get hit. And you have these silos of detectives in each district station working this, and they're not putting the map, they're not connecting the dots. So we were like, we need one place to basically send all of this and make it a clearinghouse so it all, so everybody knows what's going on. We did that. We found out, we made some significant arrests and some significant recoveries. And here's what we found out. These people were not only hit in Maryland, they're in Virginia, they're in Delaware, they're in DC. They're all along the seaboard and in the region. So the chief and I were talking, and we just had the meeting yesterday at Sheriff's headquarters with our municipal police chiefs in front. We're now asking them and all our municipal agencies, and in Prince George's County, it's unique. We have 26 municipal agencies along with the county police and sheriff's office. Send us an investigator to be a part of the retail theft unit. If you can't send somebody, that's fine. Select one of your investigators to be the person, the conduit that'll work with us. So we're doing a lot of collaborative making, which is significant in the decrease in crime and guidance. Also, I will say that our state's attorney's office and our prosecutors are taking things serious. They're actually, doing what they need to do to put people in jail. Can't arrest our way out of everything, right? But for those that need to go in jail and pay the price, they're doing a pretty good job of it. So I would say the community partnerships, our partnership with our municipal agencies, our sheriff's office, everybody's in the fight. I mean, the county executive Brave Boy said, we're a county united, and that's what's been significant in the decrease.
And let me echo that same sentiment as far as the partnership and the collaborative, efforts that each agency is taking. I think a lot of times previously we're working in silos, and as the chief was making mention to, sharing and having that data and that information, also working across jurisdictional lines. This crime doesn't have any jurisdictional lines. Assistant helps us, but I think we're also taking it from a different approach. I think if we're looking at some of the causes and probably being a little bit more proactive in some of those issues and problems, and then once we're able to identify several of those individuals, so the retail crimes, that was something that, there were legislative changes in that, and the law had actually changed, and that came from all the public safety saying, hey, this person is coming over here, they're doing it. I think the person over at Largo, I think he actually hit them for maybe several $100,000 in doing that. So we were able to work with legislators, the state's attorney, in order to make sure that now you're trying to hold those individuals accountable for. when we were looking at the juveniles, we saw that they were just a certain number of juveniles that were causing a lot of issues and problems. So once you're able to identify where, things seem to be coming from and the group or the clique or that small narrative, then you're actually able to provide that attention and you're able to be more proactive. And then intel is always helpful. So the fact that we're able to share information, work hand in hand together, I think is instrumental in the reason why you're starting to see some of the crime trends go down.
And, and I'd like to also add one more thing that the police department has. We now have a real-time crime center. And love to get you guys to come and see it. So the real-time crime center is manned 24 hours. We have the screens when everything's going on. And we also have a officer that sits in DC's real-time crime center because everything is usually between the line, them, us, whatever. So we had an incident down at the harbor where the guy stole from the Carhartt store. Stole about a couple $1,000s worth of stuff, ran out. Got the tag, he hits the tag cameras at National Harbor. Real-time crime center picked up and we actually watched him drive from the harbor into DC. DC picks him up. They watch him from where he goes and parks in front of his residence. We pick him right up. So these are the kind of things where technology is huge in us leveraging efficiency in our policing strategy. Also, we are looking to do some other things with increased technology, body-worn cameras and things. That's another discussion. But again, technology has also been a big piece of the reason that you're seeing the decreases in crime.
I have a follow-up question about the youth crime. So the other day there was a street racing thing. It's like, is there a way to, how do you catch those before they happen?
So they're called the Chopios, right? That's what they're called. So just the other day, and I don't know if you saw the press release, we arrested 2 guys from Pennsylvania with a gun on them. Yeah. So what happens is we do get the intel, and we got the intel that this was going to happen, and we have a task force. We partner with state police, us, Anne Arundel, Howard, everybody's involved in it. And these guys, we've actually, move them around, and it's an issue because you only displace them. They'll leave here, they'll go here, but we're on top of it. So like when they're showing up, we're showing up, and then they're leaving. The unique thing about this arrest with these 2 guys is that again, our aviation unit and all of them was up on it, saw it, tracked the car down to a gas station, which they had even changed the license plates, but they didn't know that we were on top of them. And once we did that and everything, because they had left the rally. So again, what's significant is that the intelligence is really good. And we have our Maryland Coordination Analysis Center, the MCAC, out of Baltimore. So we're getting all this intel and information, and that's what's allowing us to set up on. I think there was supposed to be one scheduled for tomorrow night, I believe, and we're on top of that already. So the intel, like the sheriff said again, is a huge piece of it.
So the next question is that the MPTSC approved the complaint mediation program, the option in March of 2023, where complaints that don't involve use of force or minor category A and B complaints may be mediated rather, that rather than go to the ACC for disposition. It appears that very few, if any, law enforcement agencies have taken advantage of the opportunity to establish a mediation alternative, which has the potential to expedite complaint resolution. Do you all have any insight into why that might be?
So I'll jump in on that. I think when you're looking at some of those category A's and those smaller offenses, what we're seeing, at least in our agency, is we're definitely trying to catch it more from the sergeant level and at the lower levels to try to address those offenses. Everything is not going to be a capital offense. Everything doesn't need to come over. I think a lot of the misconception is that anything involving a citizen, you must, and that's where that confusion of people saying, hey, this is really out of my hands. But we're telling those supervisors, I mean, even some of those smaller infractions, you need to address that. You need to be on top of that. That's where we're seeing some of these don't have to be infractions. Some of these don't have to be a violation. You could have caught that one, by speaking with that individual, by staying on top of that. Majority of the stuff that we send over here, I mean, you're looking at more uh, body worn camera violations than anything else from the sheriff's office. We don't really get a lot of citizen complaints at the office of the sheriff. Majority of our complaints, I believe, we had what, 90 total? 99 last year, and 33 were citizen complaints. That's nothing when you talk about the interactions that we actually encounter in dealing with that. So the violations that we do have, if 33 out of that was citizens, that means we're catching a lot more. And that's where we want our supervisors to be more responsible and be able to address and mitigate those issues and violations so that you guys aren't bogged down with unsatisfactory performances. A lot of times that may be the supervisor not doing what they're supposed to do, or even looking at some of the body worn camera or some of the other stuff. We are also looking at some of the technology to assist us and help us. But I think it's that perception at the lower levels of understanding what can be mitigated, what has to be sent over. And I actually created a whole bureau for professional accountability that actually just addresses, is that IA, the audits, inspections, the CALIA, they handle everything with that. So that's what we see on our end as far as just that understanding, as far how to be able to mitigate it and what needs to be. I think the last time I was in front of the board, we actually had the conversation about the traffic, the motor vehicles. And it was like, oh, we were sitting over motor vehicles, and you guys were like, hey, hold on. We don't need to see that. If you get in an accident and, the deputy gets in an accident with a civilian, that's not something you guys can wind up handling that. But instead, you're seeing stuff like that. That's not something that comes over to you guys. So we're addressing and we're dealing with those aspects.
I can understand what you just said, and but my question is that kind of subjective? I mean, if you say not all, what's the what is the dividing line between something that is reportable and not, if it's left up to the individual to decide that?
So for us, when we talk about what's reportable, what's not, we really like to try to use that category and the actual offense itself. Some of the smaller offenses in which we're seeing, and when I say smaller, you're talking about you know dealing with reports, not doing some of the smaller infractions to where at the end of shift, if I'm supposed to do something and I didn't, and then now all of a sudden, I think we have an acres report. That's a prime example. We had an acres report. It was an accident. The person didn't actually interview all of the witnesses. Citizen then came back and said, hey, I'm listed at fault, but you didn't, interview all of the witnesses. And they made the complaint through you guys. You came back over to us. We saw the incident report. At that moment in time, you had that individual who was supposed to, the supervisor was supposed to gather all the information. When we started our investigation in reference to it, come to find out, he didn't interview this person who was on scene. I believe the person was listed or was not listed. The person was not listed there, but they came forward and gave that information. Stuff like that. It's small and minute only because if they would have been able to just do what they're supposed to do and that follow-up would have occurred, whether it be from sergeant to lieutenant, that would have not came over here and we could have addressed and dealt with that situation. You have that look. Did I answer your question?
I think the essence of the question is maybe about more so the intermediary or the mediation option. Like, I think, and even in that example, that mediator could have said, let me handle it. It's not even going to be an option for the ACC. We're going to help figure this out. Then some of those conversations may would have happened. And so if that's something you all have looked at, I mean, you said 33 cases, like that might not be the volume that you think is really causing you all any issues. So it may not be something you all really need, but I think it's just figuring out, is this something people know about? Is this an option that seems like something they just haven't really explored yet? Or if it's something that maybe it's too expensive, like what is, maybe if there are any reasons why might people not be using a media?
I think it's on the latter in reference to just exploring that and wind up doing that. A lot of stuff is trying to be straight by the book, trying to make sure when this actually rolled out, everybody had questions.
Yeah.
And we've been up here on this board on several occasions and wondering, well, hey, how did you come to this conclusion? What did you wind up doing? And then we would get some stuff kicked back. And I think it was even this side and the other side. It was like, hey, we even have some disputes in reference to what goes on. So if you guys are still doing that the same way for us, it's going to be, hey, if we wind up doing that and we say, hey, it's going to go to that third, then we talking to these individuals right over here from the union saying, hey, hold on. Well, how did you make that determination and what goes on? Because they're advocating for the deputy sheriffs, they're advocating for the officers. So whatever we do, it has to be one uniform and it has to make sure that it involves everybody and it's not, okay, well, we made this decision on this, because then we would be accused as the heads of, well, why did you do this or how did that? And trust and believe it will come.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kick it over to my first vice president, who's also served in our internal affairs as well. I've got a management answer for it, but I'm gonna let him give you more. So no, I mean, but it's the appropriate answer. But I think that he can give a little bit more context as to why I'll give my management perspective on this. So go ahead. Yeah, man, have a seat. I didn't come here for this. Yes, you did.
So when this mediation came down, which you're speaking of, excuse me, I was assigned to create the MOU for Prince George County Police Department. I created it October 24. I sent it up the chain to our previous chief. I'm unsure where or what the status is from there, because obviously I moved out of that position. So I did create it. I did submit it. I know at the last time I had a part in it, the legal advisor was the one who was reviewing. So I spoke with PGCRC, I think is the mediation company that was assigned by the state of Maryland for this area. And like I said, we had everything on board. Like, I created the MOU, I created the templates to use. The last thing I know, we were looking for a solidified location to house these complaints, because mediations, because they wanted it to be anonymous or like separated. So they didn't want people just to randomly just walk through the front door and be seen. They wanted to be able to guess. So I can try to figure out where it's at now. Obviously, I'm not assigned anymore, but like I said,
That's all right. We'll take it.
Thank you. Definitely completed it.
So now the management perspective of it. So just as the sheriff said and alluded to, when the ACC came about, and once a complaint was filed, it was deemed that it had to go in that process. Of course, now with the mediation. So I'm going to tell you from a management perspective and speaking to officers, and I'm just always going to be straight with you. A lot of them would rather not have a mediation and just take the process itself. And I'll give you a prime example. And we get the complaints, of course, because we have more citizen interaction for various reasons. So an officer on a traffic stop pulls somebody over. You watch the body worn camera. The officer's professional. The person no one wants to get pulled over. Immediately when you walk up to a car, I wasn't speeding. It's not why I pulled you over, ma'am or sir. You failed to stop at the stop sign, this, that, and the other, whatever the case may be. And we always tell people, don't hold roadside court. Okay, don't hold court on the roadside. You'll have your day in court, get the citation or whatever it is, and then have your day in court. So basically, believe it or not, a lot of the officers' mentality is the same way. It's like, I don't want to sit through a mediation session to try to determine whether I was right or wrong. I have a body-worn camera. They can come to court, we can play it, and let that prevail. So that's a mindset. Again, remember, what is it that they say? We're now in the digital age, and there's still some people operate analog. We're trying to get them there. So that's the management perspective. It's going to take a little time. Instead of saying, hey, but, we can mediate this and get this, from having to go through these whole entire processes for minor complaints. But there's a lot of times there are more officers that are like, let them come to court. We'll just play the video and go. They'd rather go to court than sit in a mediation and get it done.
So I do know that there was one law enforcement agency that actually did that. There was a citizen filed a complaint. The citizen was inebriated, and then when they saw the tape, I want to withdraw my complaint. So in situations like that, I think that works, and I've seen a lot of that, on the ACC side. So I have seen that part of work. I know we had talked about it, and so there needs to be some level of making it standard, because like you said, we're trying to figure this out as we go, build a plan as we go, as Dr. Copeland always says, but I have seen things like that work. But rather than that, for an example, I was concerned with that because there should have been some paperwork that the citizens should have signed, so then they can not bring it back up and say, well, no, I never said that. There needs to be some documentation if they go through their complaint, and so that they can come to the ACC, and then we can file it that way. Oh, you use your outside voice, I got you.
I'll just say really quickly, the one thing, mediation, we would love to have that as an option. We encourage that as an option, but what you all have to understand is that from a perspective of a citizen, just based on how we arrived at this point here, offering mediation may appear to be a sweep under the rug, to not want to pursue the full investigation or full process. So we never want to be in a position where we look like we're not trying to do a full-fledged investigation into a complaint. And understanding that mediation is absolutely an option, and we encourage that, but we want to make sure that the citizen feels that their rights have been heard and they've gotten the opportunity to pursue in the manner in which they see fit. And that we're being transparent. Thank you very much.
Could I ask you this, though?
Yes.
So if I'm a first-year officer, what do you, and I come to the union, what would you tell me to do?
What do you mean? If
If I'm
there's an
first
option
year
for
officer,
mediation, or,
yeah, what would you tell me to do?
well, I would tell them to pursue all avenues. If mediation is an option for them and they feel that the issue can be rectified, then absolutely pursue that option. However, that's not how things work. So I don't get to tell them to pursue mediation. That's not how that works.
Okay, I'm a union member.
Uh-huh.
You ain't helped me with that, baby.
Say that one more time.
You didn't help me. What should I do as a union member? Should I do mediation or should I do the other one? That's what I'm saying.
But
I
that's
mean,
not how
I
the
don't know.
options are presented, sir. I can't tell them to choose mediation or the other. So they can only follow what the complaint process, how the complaint process goes and how it leads. So if the investigation says, hey, we can resolve this matter in mediation, and that's presented to the officer, then the officer has a decision to make. But I don't get to say, hey, if I were you, I'd take mediation. That's a choice.
So I
for
think
them.
you're looking at it that the union would be involved in that beginning phases.
Yeah,
Where fraternal
what
affairs gets it
is
and they're
the
doing an
best-
investigation.
Yeah,
By the time they come with a finding of facts, they're now presenting that finding of facts and dealing with that. So then that officer now has to make a determination on, hey, because either with you guys or whatever, it would have been, hey,
What's the
do
best
you want to,
avenue, though? That's
yeah,
it.
what, do
Yes,
you
sir.
want to take this? Do you
Yes,
not
sir.
want to take this? And that's when they may say, hey, I want my union rep, I want this. And that's where it starts to go from here. So then they can say, hey, well, based off of what we see, they can give their advice, but they also have legal attorneys as well from that. So it's not going to be them, it's going to be the attorney that's going to be give that advice on that.
And then the most important thing to remember about mediation is that both parties have to agree to mediate the matter. So if I am, sitting tableside with one of my officers and we are willing to do mediation, however, citizen X is not willing to do mediation, then that's a moot point.
Yeah, no question.
Thank you.
One further question. Who makes the determination about whether it rises to the level of mediation as opposed to just taking care of it? That's basically what I'm trying to ask.
That's the investigation.
The agency.
So, again, it sounds like it defeats the purpose of having a complaint process. If you could just say, oh, we're not gonna do mediation, we're just gonna take care of it. What if that officer is a repeat offender and does the same thing over and over again?
I think that's why we don't go to deal with mediation. Every case is pretty much gone through that whole process so that it's made, that's the reason why you don't see us as agency saying, oh, well, let's try to do a mediation on this. It's letting that process go through, hear the findings, everything gets to seem to be sent over this way.
And to your point, Ms. Bryant, so like you said, the repeats, whatever, so you're looking at that with the Douglas factor of this person's record. That is going to play a role in whether it's mediation, especially when you talk about the same thing. That's not a mistake, not it's a habit. The habit is the problem. which I believe has to be addressed through, and we don't use that, the discipline or the corrective action, the appropriate corrective action. So even like you said, so even with the mediation piece, which you want to always do things at the lowest level. I get that, and I agree with that. But again, like you said, at the end of the day, the two people have to agree. Because even though there's some officers that may say, you know what, I'll take the mediation. Again, some citizens like, no, I want my day in court too, and I want to explain what happened. So, but absolutely.
And I hope that doesn't give the impression that we're pushing for that or recommending it. We want to understand why, because we have heard quite a few chiefs say, man, we get some of the most small stuff just bogging down, or an officer got that on his jacket and that could have got resolved. So we do want to just understand that's it.
But and I'm sorry, but like I said again, the way to understand it again is we're now talking about mediation, this thing that was started in 2023, right?
Mhm.
It's 2026. We're talking about type A personalities and people who discuss
Yeah,
the
right.
system. So turning the battleship, I guess. Not saying that we can't get it done.
Mhm.
We're still doing it. Not Jay turning the Corvette.
Yeah.
I have a question. So you said that some of the officers would rather go through and have their day in court. Is there something specific about the mediation process that they don't like, or is it just that they would just rather go through?
No, I think
have their day in court.
No, I think you're still just talking about a system. They're just police officers and law enforcement. We don't like the way things are. We don't like change. So you can't please us and you can't help us. Right. So they'd rather just say, I'll go through that system. So again, it's us probably more so than anything else continuing to push this COMAR, require, or this COMAR obligation.
But I do want to.
The opportunity.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I do want to give just a mindset. As you talked about, some people saying, hey, we just get bogged down and we have some of the smallest little, that is irritating to public safety. When I say public safety, I'm talking about all law enforcement, men and women who actually wear the uniform. It is, I'm out here trying to keep people safe. I'm doing the job. And this person is complaining. They don't have a valid complaint. But I get more, and I'll hear this from whether the union or somebody else, our deputy sheriffs, our officers are afraid to do their job because they're afraid they're going to get a complaint. They're afraid that, hey, this person's always going to make it. And we knew that was going to, no matter what. But the concern comes out of that. So when now you say, well, let's mediate, it's like, well, what are we mediating when I was doing what I was supposed to do? And now you ask me to sit down and mediate something where I know I didn't do anything wrong. We have the body worn cameras here. So a lot of times they are already frustrated. So then when you get to adding another process of, let's sit down and let's talk about this. But we not one of this group, I would say, in this profession is not probably the best profession of sitting down and really talking about step by step, because even when we call them into internal affairs, they're very hesitant. They're very standoffish. There's, why am I here? You get the hands and you get, and it's more of a fear factor than it is, because it's like, I got this complaint. I know for a fact it's going to have to stay in my file, my personnel file, and I'm up for promotion, or hey, I want to get transferred or something. So that's what their concern may be. So when you look at that mediation standpoint, like the county police said, they may have people who want to do mediation, but it goes for both sides.
So not to belabor this any longer, but it's truly, especially the way the police accountability, the bill is written, there's no way to remove that complaint from your file. So if you have an officer or a deputy that gets this complaint, we can mediate it, but essentially it's still in my file. It doesn't go anywhere. So I'd rather be exonerated instead of mediated, because if it's going to stay there, I want it to show exonerated on my file. If I can't get rid of it, it needs to still show. I don't want it to show, oh, both parties mediated and they came to an agreement. Well, what was the agreement? I'd rather have that exoneration than a mediation note in my file. So,
Thank you. This question before they just get harder, so don't. So thank you. Question 5, Dr. Coleman. Oh, really? See, then look, I'm trying to.
I know, you're trying to run
Question
through the
one.
list. You're trying to run through the list
Question.
here. So as a former civilian law enforcement, everything you said is true. It's been a long time, but I was a civilian law enforcement employee in another state, so I get it. Worked in communications, and so can't help it and can't. Very true. That's still very true. Okay, so question 4. According to 2025 ACC data, attention to duty neglect at 12%, use of force at 10%, unbecoming conduct at 9%, and BWC violation 6%, discourtesy 6%, and procedural violation by an officer represent about half of all allegations against officers. What strategies, if any, have your department implemented to mitigate and reduce these allegations?
So I'll say for the office of the sheriff, use of force is lower, where we are getting ready to add some technology in reference to it. We actually have technology that we were not using that should assist and help us as far as just the reporting and just following up in reference to that. Even still, when I look at our statistics, even going back to 2023, our use of force is definitely very low. The attention to duty or neglect, a lot of that is retraining and really focusing on that. So like we have the FBI actually coming in and training, and that'll be in October, to actually provide some sort of leadership classes, and then also dealing with just additional classes, even outside of the normal stuff that we get here in the area. I'm a firm believer of, you can't always just focus on what we do here. You have to expand your approach and actually look to see exactly what everybody else is doing, because you come in with a different perspective instead of having that group think of, we're always doing, well, this is what they do in, Montgomery County, or here's what the police department does, or here's what. So we're expanding that approach. When we look at the body worn camera violations, I'm hoping that with new technology that is getting ready to roll out, I think countywide, it should assist in some of those violations where the camera now will, still record, and it's something where we're now bringing in more of an AI type feature to it, and all along with translation and everything else that would definitely help. So, it helps tremendously when you're able to do that. So when you look at that violation piece, that's something that body worn camera violation, I think that's something that eventually with technology, we should be getting, and I would say maybe by the end of this year, I would say some of those pieces should roll out, if not the beginning of next year. Now the discourtesy and just the procedural violations. Procedural violations is just, again, reinforcing, general orders, our special orders and stuff like that, SOPs. What we see a lot of times, and one of the reasons why I still actually have a testing mechanism for our first class and corporals, is because you got to make sure the people know the information. You got to keep trying to hammer and go over that information with them. Otherwise, they'll just run on autopilot. And we all know there's an informal culture in every agency. We do this just because we had to do it, and now it becomes something that this is what we always do. So that's something how we're trying to address that through technology, and then also through education portion.
So again, what I'll do is I'm gonna let first vice president. Well, you shouldn't have won the presidency out of IA when you was working for me. Come on up to the table, and then I'll take the other half of the things that we're doing to handle it. Hey, you want to show up, man?
Shouldn't have showed.
Just sit at the table.
Need that app.
I know, right? No, I know. I should have did it Zoom. So while I was in internal affairs, the attention to duty is basically like an umbrella. So like if we can't find anything to charge you with, specifically in the general order, we would just do attention to duty. So and that's how that, and a lot of them like that. Use of forces have subcategories: excessive, unnecessary. So all of those are lumped into that 10%, which causes that to rise. So I think there's 4. I'm not sure if they changed it, but there's 4 subcategories for use of force, if I'm not mistaken. Unbecoming conduct is kind of like the same thing. It's just conduct that is unwarranted. So pretty much majority of the cases we get, the complaints, the conduct is unbecoming. As an agency, they look at it like, okay, well, you use of force, you twisted his arm, or you punched him in the stomach too many times. They're going to put unbecoming conduct, and they're going to put the use of force as a secondary charge. Well, the use of force will be primary, and then the conduct will be second, depending on their level. Body worn cameras is self-explanatory. Obviously, we get people, them dying or failing to do it, or it gets hit. We still review those. So like any complaint coming in with an issue with body worn camera, we still put the charge on it. If the allegation is something to do with the body worn camera, like you like, your body worn camera's not on file in the complaint. That's automatically going to be the allegation, regardless of whether it's sustained, non-sustained, exonerated, or whatever case may be. It's going to be there. Discourtesy is the same thing. Like what you deem as discourtesy may be something you deem as discourtesy. Use of language, same. It's like an umbrella. So like they will hit you with discourtesy, but then they also will hit you with the language charge. You'll see them both. Yes, if you look at it like that, yes. And like procedural is the same thing with an umbrella, with the procedural body worn camera. So essentially, that's the same charge. So you'll see when you get the allegations, end up say procedural violation, body worn camera, procedural violation, language. So yes, yeah. So when you go through, like, a lot of things will have procedure. So any procedural is anything that you're supposed to do. Procedural. You failed to write a report. So you always see procedural in front of a lot of the allegations coming through, because that's where the basis started from. I think that was it.
Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead, Brian.
I just had a quick question about the body worn cameras. What's going to change? What's the significant change with the way they operate now?
So we're looking at going to a new toll system. Right now, we're using Motorola. Huh? Looking? No. I'm not looking. What? We're going.
Okay. All right.
Going. Okay. Going. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to a different system. Right now we have one system, but of course the newer system, and like the sheriff alluded to, is like there's a lot of AI in it. There are a lot. It's just contemporary with today's needs. I'll give you a prime example. If I'm on the scene of an incident, if these three pull up and get out of their cars, their cameras automatically come on too. If I draw my weapon, my camera automatically turns on. If I pass by the scene of my camera will come on, and that downloads, so that way when you're reviewing these cases, it's like, well, okay, you didn't interview Officer so-and-so, so Officer so-and-so wasn't there. So-and-so's camera hit right here at this time, or whatever the case may be. So these are the things as it relates to technology, where we said leveraging technology to enhance efficiency in our craft. It stays on. It's an automatic activate. It's an automatic activate. And even if you turned it off, that again would come up into one of those procedural violations of a body worn camera, because once you're on the scene, you have to keep it on until you clear that call. So you can't turn it off. So if you do, you've already committed a violation on a body worn camera.
And I want us to make sure when you talk about this body worn camera and the violations, some of the stuff, it is procedural, but we can't overlook the human element. It's a call for service. All hell is breaking loose. I just want to get out the car, help this officer, or address or deal with whatever it may be, and I forget to do this and turn this camera on. I catch a violation. And you have to understand, sometimes, depending on the call, depending on what's going, my mind is going to be racing. I'm looking at what I have in front of me, and I'm not worried. And we have in our policies that when you get dispatched, you're supposed to turn it on. So a lot of times we have us driving, and you see the steering wheel on and dealing with that. So this will help us tremendously in trying to address some of those concerns and issues as far as being able to record. And we shouldn't be getting violations where we just add them on like they just yeah.
Right. So some of the other things we have, and I'll talk about it when there's specific training. So when you're talking about uses of force and things of that, our agency goes through what's called ICAT training, integrating communications and assessment tactics. So what that does, it gives you an opportunity to create time and distance and evaluate what you're dealing with. If you're dispatched to a call and someone's yelling on the corner or they're being irate, ICAT basically integrating communications gives you an opportunity to park at a safe location, assess what you're dealing with, and use the appropriate tactics. Try to communicate and talk to this person. If you see, okay, well, I'm going to probably need I'm going to need a clinician, or I'll need a co-responder or something. I can evaluate that from a distance, and we're trained on that. We also have ABLE training. We're an ABLE trained unit, which is ABLE trained agency, which is active bystandership for law enforcement. So basically, if I'm on the scene of something and I'm using excessive, unnecessary force, inappropriate language, if he or she or anybody else doesn't stop me, they're as culpable as I am. They have an obligation to stop me. That's why it's called an active bystandership for law enforcement. They have to report me. They have to stop me. So we are ABLE trained. Of course, we continuously every year in service training, we go through our sensitivity trainings and our harassment trainings and things of that nature every year. So again, if the thing happens in which they violate that and you were trained on it, unfortunately, there goes the violation, and you were trained on it, you were taught. So you do get, unfortunately, you have to pay the price for that. So those are other things along with the technology that we're using to implement to prevent and decrease these numbers that you're seeing.
I have a question. It's going back to some of the categories that you gave in terms of percentages. There was a clarification on where certain actions go. And it sounded like in explaining, I think, for example, unbecoming conduct or maybe attention to duty or neglect, that sometimes there may be one item or two or three that are placed, it's a repetitive category of replacement, for different offenses, you give a specific category.
Correct.
And it sounds like there could be 3 offenses, so they all get the same category. It almost sounds like a false or an inflation of percentage. I know I'm in the weeds a little bit, but instead of just saying unbecoming conduct and then you list all the actions under that category, it sounds like each action gets the same.
So generally the way it works is we follow the general orders. So the general orders is, you guys probably, you see it. So
I know it is.
when we don't find a specific charge for the action, it would be like unbecoming conduct. So if it's something, let's say someone walked up on scene and they basically threatened a person.
So I got that. It just sounded like for different causations, you were double listing the same categories. So instead of line iteming them all 4 under the one, it sounds like
it would
one.
One, two. So there would never be 4 unbecoming conduct charges for each single one. It would just be one unbecoming conduct charge.
Yeah, because you don't want to stack.
Yeah, you would list that.
Thank you. That's what I was hearing.
Stacking. Well, we've had that.
So it wouldn't be
We've had
unbecoming
that
conduct,
conversation.
unbecoming conduct. It wouldn't be like that.
No, I know.
It
I'm
would just
saying
be-
the sheriff and I used to have those conversations about stacking charges.
Okay, because that's what in the explanation, that's what it sounded like.
Yeah. No,
thank
so
you
we're
for
not
the clarification.
like doing 4 different
Right,
one
okay.
action, so it's normally one charge.
Okay.
But what it is when we didn't find the specific section in the general orders to charge them, it would be unbecoming conduct because it's basically like the actions of all officer are held to a higher
I
standard.
got that.
Yeah. So
That I got.
that's
Okay.
fine. So it wasn't like we were doing.
Okay.
No. I wouldn't allow that. I'm not there anymore, but I didn't allow it. Y'all, no worries.
I think it's me next. So, this was not planned because I have a recruitment question. I'm like, this was not, but I got it. Okay, considering recent recruitment challenges, what is being done to attract new recruits? What is being done to ensure the standards for new officers are not lowered just to get more recruits in the pipeline?
So, yeah, and I was about to, I'll be nice on this question, only because of just your background, because I would have to ask of you. But just from us, I would say from the recruitment standpoint, I mean, we're able to get people to actually feel like we have a class of 8 getting ready to graduate in the next 2 weeks or so. We have another amount of 5, and then right now I have 6 waiting to go to the academy. We probably have 10 by the time the academy comes up. So we're able to get people, and then we have actual legislation that's going to require us to have a larger amount, whether it be in the courthouse or with us dealing with domestic violence expansion. So to answer your question, as far as what we're doing to attract new recruits, we're looking at trying to go. When I say younger, for lack of a better term, a cadet program. We're really looking at that 18-year-old, getting them into our building security program. That means they're inside of the courthouse, they're working, we're mentoring, we're developing them, and then we're feeding that pipeline. The other standpoint, because of some of the requirements, just through from the office of the sheriff, we do have a large amount of experience law enforcement officers because again, that courthouse numbers are getting ready to grow tremendously because of the requirement of 2 deputies to every criminal courtroom, 1 deputy to every civil courtroom, and then 1 deputy to every 4 courtrooms in the courthouse. So we are probably one of the high volume courthouses on the East Coast. So that's going to require us to actually bring people on. And instead of just having some of those younger folks, we'll be looking at more experienced folks. But from the younger folks and bringing people in, I'm looking at trying to develop and build those individuals up. We also are working with the school system. I know the uh, Department of Corrections, Prince George's County Police, myself, I'm sorry, the Sheriff's Office. We're involved in talks right now of a actual public safety academy. That public safety academy has been talked about being over at Bladensburg High School, and that is going to be just like what fire does when they have those over at Charles Flowers and over at Grid Park. They have those individuals. They get certifications. They're then able to actually come onto the agency and continue to. That's what we're looking for, and I think we in the office of the sheriff definitely have jobs at 18. We do understand that hey, they have to be 20 and now 3 months in order to get them into the door as a deputy sheriff. But we have to grow our own. I truly believe that. So I've been staying inside of Prince George's County. We've been really looking. We've done the media stuff where we've been on TV, we've done the commercials, but I really want to try to foster some of our younger folks to actually want to become in public safety and law enforcement.
So the program that you're talking about with 18-year-olds, is it a cadet program that you're talking about?
So that's where I was saying I was going to need some of your expertise in reference to because OHIM is working with us right now in reference to categorizing how it would actually be.
Okay.
But as the program that we're talking about with the schools, we're looking at how we would actually categorize those individuals to then try to streamline some of their processes. Of course, at 18, they can actually go to the jail and be a certified, correctional officer. When it comes to the police department and the sheriff's office, it's very limited items and stuff that they can actually do. But that's what we're trying to foster and try to see. So for lack of a better term, I'm using the word cadets because we don't have a cadet program currently like the police department already has.
Right. So, right, the age is 20 for you guys, right? So a program that's a 2-year program that could feed them in
Yes.
is what you're talking
Yeah.
about, right?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is with all of the demands from the courts, is your authorized strength being increased?
Yes. The
where you can't apply for
Because it's a standard.
Oh, yeah, and they'll send Well, no, well, it's needs of the agency.
Okay.
Yeah, they go by needs of the agency. So if transit is short, so that's where you'll go. You'll go to transit. Yeah, exactly. But if there's one more thing I could add to, and I not to continue to belabor the point as it relates to recruiting. So the police department is looking at changing our practices as it relates to the hiring process. We still use the same hiring process that we used when I came on back in 1997. The test is that, so if there's a there's a thing called the National Testing Center. And let's say there's a kid that lives, and I know a lot of times homegrown, like I'm in New York, I'm a transplant now, so it is what it is. But you get a kid from, I'm from New York too, watch. No, I'm representing. Right, we're good, yeah, I think they want I appreciate it. So, thank you. Well, living Queens. Okay, we'll talk later. So, here's the thing. With the National Testing Center, let's say there's a kid who's in the military who wants to go into law enforcement, and they apply to MPDC. The National Testing Center gives, if we're members of that coalition, we all get that applicant scores, and we can all solicit that individual. Say, hey, we're hiring here in Prince George's County, or we're doing this and that. And the other. So because if you look at it nationwide, it's all the same. So why not? And plus, if you're part of it, it's not really pilfering, but it's like, hey, you can see what we have to offer. They can also go in there and apply to the different agencies with National Testing Center, and they can go right to a center in Kentucky and get everything done. They don't have to come here to Prince George's County, take the written test, and do all that other stuff. They can do the right thing.
And why is that not true?
Hmm?
Then why is that not?
Because it's all part of the same. It's all part of the same system. That's why. And they actually can select the applications for all of those. But we can also see them as well and say, hey.
So has that improved the situation?
Well, we haven't gone to it yet. Okay. We're in the process of going to. But you do know this is the first time in 10 years that this agency had the largest class that it's had in 10 years. Yes, since 2014. We have 50. Well, yeah, and whatever. Yeah, so it's no, ours is 50. That's great. But the thing is that we haven't had a class as big like it since 2015. So, and I'm quite so is HB 670 concerned for new officers? No, because they've never been governed by anything else. So this is what they wouldn't, like I said, they wouldn't. It's just like I came in on a 20-year retirement, retired and came back. They're on a 25, so they wouldn't. Yeah, so they wouldn't know. But the other points to some of the things that we had to do to stay contemporary is even like the cruises, take home cruises out of the county a certain mileage. So we've implemented that as well. So that's also been able to bear some fruit in increase in our recruiting as well. But police department, I think that piggybacks right into the question that I had. Are there any notable retention strategies that are working to retain? So I mean, the drop program has been significant. Deferred retirement, so people can stay an additional, 3 years, and then they get a X amount of dollars compound onto their retirement. And also now they're talking about extending that, so that's been able to, that's been huge in retention. Okay, and also there's some other things we're looking at as it relates to education. A lot of that big piece now with people staying in agencies and coming on agencies, especially the younger group, and I know I'm kind of going back, but they actually want to be educated, have opportunity to go to school and get education more so than anything else. See, like we were good with take home cruises, but these kids nowadays, and I have it, they Uber everywhere. They don't care about a car. So they'll drive their police cars at work. They'll drive them to part time and overtime. But if they're going out, like we used to in the county, we drove our cruises everywhere. They person sit at home, now Uber drive their personal business.
Time to change.
Time to change, right? So it's meeting them where they are. But drop has been very good for retention.
Okay.
Very good for retention.
Have, have, ex, have extended work shifts had an adverse effect on officer performance?
So for us, I think our extended shifts will be looking at the 12-hour schedules, and those are 2 units currently that actually have those 12-hour schedules. Domestic Violence Intervention Division, Bureau, and our Bureau of, not Bureau, but the Professional Accountability and DVID, which is domestic violence. So they actually, behavioral, I'm sorry, I'm losing now, but behavioral health. So those are 12 hours. One of the reasons why we have those 12 hours is when they try to, for that all time, they basically work, 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, and then the following week they work just 2. Really trying to give them that 15 days of actual work. Do they actually have adverse effects? Yes. I'm not going to say that they don't. Anytime you work shift work is going to have some adverse effects in doing that. And I can say one thing that we are doing is that we do look at individuals who are in these units. We do move individuals around. I would say consistently, but we are trying to get a baseline and record for it. But those 12 hours is what we just think of as we start to continue to bring people in. Like currently right now, I think we are 33 now. That's it. 33. Now, and really not even 33. We're not counting the people who are waiting to come in and finishing up their employee trial, and 14 civilians. So when you look at something like that with an agency of almost 400 people, it's a drop in the bucket. That's nothing at all. So as we start to bring people on because of some of the upcoming requirements, we do know that maybe we will be looking at maybe the 10 and 8s and maybe some permanent shifts and then try to address and deal with that. But anytime we work shift work, it's always, especially those extended hours, it's going to be that way. When people are saying they go down, we also look at our secondary employment. Our secondary employment stays full, where even when they do work and they still do go work the secondary employment, they still out there working. So, we do try to monitor that as well.
But are they 12-hour shifts?
Yes.
12 hours.
Yeah.
3 days on, 3 days off.
Two
2 days off.
2 days on, 2 days off,
Oh,
and you have 3 days. So you get basically every other weekend off. You basically, the following week, you only work 2 days out of that week. So, if you wanted to take a vacation or something, you take 2 days worth of leave, you have that whole week off.
That's the same for PG.
So yeah, so when I left, we were on the 10s, but of course throughout my retirement. Now I know he's 33 people down. The police department, I'm about 390 down. Yeah, I'm about 390. So mine isn't a drop in the bucket. Mine is a hailstorm. So we went to 12-hour shifts on patrol and some other supporting units. Now, I heard you talk about the shifts. So the way that it had to work, they had to add what we call a pitman schedule. So there's a certain amount of overtime hours built into the shift to make it amount out to 40 hours.
What?
Yeah.
Every pay period, they get 4 hours.
They get 4 hours of overtime. Yeah.
They end up working 44 hours.
45.
And then work 84 hours.
Right. Instead of the 80, right, just to exceed them in FLSA. So now I will tell you, even though with those 12 hours and all, they still do phenomenal work. Again, of course, it's just some adverse factors. They don't like the 12-hour shifts, especially those of us who came up with the 410s. And they like to go back to that. Now, I'll tell you, I would compliment it's supposed to be 1,700, 1,789, right? Now, but those are numbers that were probably based on, I think, 2005 or something. I can't remember. 20 years ago. Right now in this county, with the amount of buildings, we talk about 500 miles, square miles of real estate, and now up to almost 1 million people who work, play, and live in Prince George's County. We should be at anywhere doing a study between 2,200 to 2,500 officers. Easy.
And you are
And right now, I'm at 1,392. And I'm supposed to have 1,789. You should have 2,000. To do what we really need to for a county that's large in the mountain, sir. 25, 22 to 2,500. Now, of course, I probably won't see that in my career time. I have to retire and come back, but I'm not doing it again. Yeah. Yeah. How many times can you refry a bean? I'm not doing it. So anyway, but but those are the things that we had to do. Now, of course, I would love to get to those numbers and put these minimums back on the 10 hours and 10-hour shifts, but that's the reality of it.
So union, what are you guys doing?
Well, I can say for the 12-hour shift, from the union perspective, to answer that question effectively, it really depends on the age and the family position of that officer.
And the duties they perform.
Yeah. So I can tell you, my younger officers who don't have kids, they love it because, as the sheriff said, they can use 2 days of leave and be off for it allows them to have more free time. It allows them to go work more secondary employment. We're short staffed at the sheriff's office. It allows them to work overtime. But you have someone that has young children, you know, like I shoot the sheriff's office at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Most daycare centers don't open till 6 o'clock, 6:30, and they close 5:30, 6 o'clock. So now you're the drop off of the pickup person. It's going to be very hard for you to do. That means you're going to have an unhappy other parent because they're going to be stuck the days that you're working doing that duty. But then you have 2 days on, you're going to be tired for that first day that you're off because you work 24 hours in the last 48 hours. You're going to be sleeping. So you're not going to be as productive at home that first day that you're off. So it really depends on where you are in your life. Now, my older officers, they don't like it. So now you're asking somebody that's, you know, mid-40s, maybe in their 50s, the law enforcement that's old. Law enforcement that's old. You know, hey, I got to work 12 consistent hours and I got to do this. You know, they don't complain about the 2 days on, but the 3 days on really good. They say by that third day, they're running out of gas. So it really depends on the person. So.
Yes.
Okay, ask you, what did you say your current staffing strength is?
1,392. Yeah, 99, right?
And your full strength was 1789.
Full strength was 1789.
Full sworn complement will be 264. I need you to write this down for the sheriff's office too. Don't. Yeah. 264 for the whole county. Yeah.
And again, we can talk about that.
But yeah, that's sworn. I mean, that's unfunded. I'm fighting in reference to that. So the state is going to mandate it, but that doesn't mean the county has that money. So they're going to say, hey, those 40 officers, if that means you can keep the courthouse, we got to fix something. That don't mean that you're going to get that right away in reference to that. So that's where we're looking at other measures to do that. So
you said your full strength is 264.
264.
And your current amount, right?
I'm down 33 from that.
And you want your complement, you're trying to get an increase.
The complement should be around 5 based off of the actual staff study. Right. Because when you add our civilians, that's what actually brings us up to 400 and something. That's like 105, 106 civilian staff members.
And can you hire more civilians for the courthouse? And I see sometimes in them in the courthouse.
Yeah, but those those don't work for the office of the sheriff. So you're talking about building security. That's something that, if you don't know, we're in the process of moving as well. So we'll be moving from Chrysler Way, and we're going over to the old county administration building. So it's going to be like more of a justice campus, where we'll be responsible for that whole upper market. Yeah, it'll be something like that. And I guess I'll split back. Fire's supposed to be coming. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. As you know, there was a whole battle about that, but yeah. So we'll be. Yeah. We have to. We were leasing a space then. The building in itself, I want to say, was 55,000 square feet over at Chrysler Way. One floor over at the CAB is around 44,000. So again, we're going to have like 3 floors or so with that. So again, we're doubling our footprint, in reference to doing that. It just makes sense. It saves money for the county. I wasn't going to argue that point. I was one of the ones to say, hey, let's try to work together in order to try to make sure it works. Our biggest thing is that, you know, if we're going to share, we are responsible for security, but we got to be responsible also because we have people turning themselves in. We deal with custody issues. You don't want to have somebody else dead. It's all out raw downstairs and they trying to come into work.
So just to the board, I want to be sure that we respect the officer's time. We got 7 questions left, so I just want to prioritize their responses so that we can make sure we don't keep them here too late. So the next question is, there's been a lot of attention given to mitigating discriminatory practices between law enforcement and the general public. But what measures do you all take to address on-the-job instances of bias or discrimination?
And you're saying on the job is situation.
So in other words, in-house bias
discrimination.
and discrimination.
One thing that I can say and I'm very proud of as far as how diverse we are, and we're trying to continue to be very diverse as far as actually mirror the number of who we actually serve. So you're looking at those demographics. I mean, we have people with different age ranges, different ethnic backgrounds, in order to try to address that. Along with, again, some of that diversity stuff. Oh, yeah. Some of that diversity requirements that we're trying to have. So we're actively looking to try to recruit to make sure that we are diverse. Yeah. So we're doing that diversity training is what she's making mention to in reference to that. From our standpoint, you want to speak to any diversity issues or bias that we able to what you may give?
I mean, the unique thing about the sheriff's office that it's kind of different in most law enforcement agencies in this area, that the sheriff's office is a predominantly Black agency. So when it comes to diversity, it's really the opposite for us. We're trying to recruit more Latino, Asian, and white employees instead of, you know, just Black employees. We are predominantly Black agency. And when I go and speak, that's a very rare occurrence that people don't understand. I mean, when you think about the police department anywhere, you know, the predominant race is going to be white.
But even in those cases, law enforcement, you can have a lot of gender issues. You have a lot of issues where women are not treated the same. So
we also, an anomaly, we have a lot of female high-ranking officers within the sheriff's office. So, you know, so a lot of things that we have within the office of the sheriff is different from what you see elsewhere here in the DMV. It is different, and you know, it's so when you talk about bias and discrimination, most of the time when those issues come up, it comes up because of sometimes it comes up like a uniform stand, where the uniform might not be as conducive for a woman than it is for a man. The sheriff spoke on hair. You know, he did come in and change our policy when it comes to hair. Yeah. So a lot of those.
And they wear dreads.
Yeah. Fingernails. Yeah. So a lot of those bias issues have been addressed. So we don't have as many of those issues that you see in other law enforcement.
I think that the next 2 questions are sort of. Oh, sorry. I did not need to. Sorry.
That's true. I grabbed mine. So, it seemed to the point of what President Yancy said, the police department also, if you look at our command staff structure, it's similar. We have the chief is Lebanese American. Okay, you know, Black male. We have a Black female deputy chief. We have 2 white male deputies, and we have another Black male deputy chief. I mean, so and this is down the line too. And one thing that we also big on too is our the 30 by 30 initiative. You know, 30% of
agency to be women by 2030. Yes, we are part of that initiative and we're working on that. So I don't know where we are percentage wise now, but we're making a hard push to implement that in the agency. As it relates to bias and all that, we have a very good EEO program. We people are afforded the opportunity to use that vessel if they feel the need, and it's a unbiased process. And if those needs arise for that, but the discrimination piece, unfortunately, has dealt with it in the past. Hope that that's something that you'd like to not see it anymore, but unfortunately, you will see it because there's always going to be somebody who feels as though they're being discriminated against. But and I'll let you speak. But there's one thing I have seen since I've come back is that a lot of the employees, they are actually unfamiliar with what discrimination is or hostile work environment. They don't actually know the definition of it. And when they actually send it up and you look and I'm like, no, this isn't discriminatory. This is just the fact that now you're actually being required to do what you're supposed to do. And I'll give you a prime example. When I was at the sheriff's office and I actually had the position that Bureau Chief Wiseman here has, one of the things that used to be a complaint is that when people were working secondary employment, they were parking on curbs. You've seen that with crews that park on curbs. There was one deputy that was working in a position where he parked on the curb and there were people at this restaurant eating and they thought that looked tacky. They complained. You shouldn't be parking on the curb. And the one thing I got was, well, we've been doing it. Well, just because you've been doing it doesn't mean it was always right. It's always been wrong. No one's just told you or no one's enforced it. It's being enforced now. Stop parking on the curb. So again, those are the things that I see when you deal with it, is that sometimes they're unaware of what discrimination and bias really is, the definition, which is incumbent upon us to teach that. We have a very robust EEO person to do that, but that's just some of the things that I see.
Hold on for a minute before she speaks. Now let's go back. Because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the last police chief, we had just settled a discrimination suit. What we need to know what has been done so another suit don't come around. We can't say it all was rosy rosy because it was a major suit and we settled it out of court as far as promotions and everything like that. But the question is, who implemented the change? It ain't been rosy, That was just 2-3 years ago.
A little longer than that, about 4 years. 2020.
I know what I'm saying, but so
I remember 2020. Right before I retired, yeah. I remember.
It was a major thing, and since then we brought in one new chief, and then the new administration came and brought in another chief. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, what has changed since then?
Okay, so I'm gonna let the president speak.
So because of that lawsuit, there were a lot of things that were directed that we had to address. So a couple of things that had to go into the settlement was there was not only the testing, but in terms of our policy, there had to be clear policy on hate and bias and discrimination. There had to be clear policy on harassment. Additional to that, we had to implement new processes in our testing, which technically testing is out of our wheelhouse. We are just the clients. Testing comes from the county. The county they don't mandate, but they organize and structure the test. They hire the vendors. We are just the client in that. So we adhere to those policies. So in terms of how we're moving through the agency to address internal discrimination or bias, as Assistant Chief Nichols stated, there is the active bystandership in law enforcement. That's something that we did not have before because some of the instances that were brought up in the lawsuit indicated that there was unfair treatment amongst the ranks, amongst each other. So not having that active bystandership which requires officers, if you see something, say something, you have a duty to intervene. That eliminates a lot of the internal discrimination. We have there's internal mediation that happens. We also, as you said, we have a robust EEOC process. Whereas if an officer does feel like they're being discriminated against or biased, we have an internal EEOC coordinator, but they are given the option to go externally. They can go to Baltimore, they can go to the Prince George's County EEOC office, they can go to the Office of Human Rights and file those processes, which become anonymous. So we are very forthcoming in those processes. However, the FOP is not involved in those because that's beyond our wheelhouse. However, we do advise our officers if there is a complaint or a grievance that they do not feel can be handled internally. These are the mechanisms if they think that they rise to that particular level of discrimination. They are encouraged, supported, and afforded the opportunities to handle those things.
So you saying these benchmarks came out of the result of the
Some of them did, yes.
Right. And let me go back because now I remember when you and I used to always talk with Mr. Lee. Right. So here's the other thing that came out because I sat through that police board. Remember when we had to implement these changes during transition before the new chief and administration had brought in the new chief. One of the things I'll talk about is the transfer process. That was a big thing where certain people were getting to go to special jobs and other people were. Well, now everybody has to, an announcement goes out. I just signed off on one today to go to community first. An announcement goes out department wide. Anybody who meets the criteria, 18 months and this and that, and so on and so forth, they can apply. They will apply. A board is set up, an even board that shows all demographics, woman, male, gender, everything. That all happens. And the questions for the exam, for the interviews are vetted by our personnel so that they're fair and accurate questions. They don't give a slight to anybody that would be on the board. So those are some of the things that we implement to prevent bias. So I'm familiar with some. So, and I know I know we have a time of 8:30. So if we get questions and we email, we should be able to provide that. Yeah, fight for it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So there are the next two questions are basically the same. So the influx of police auditing like YouTube and Facebook and all these things, as well as the perception and increased scrutiny because of them. How are officers being trained to deal with that? Cameras everywhere, everybody's watching. Do you feel like the officers feel like they're being pressured or prosecuted or made unfair judgments?
Well, some of the context behind that question is that these platforms can undermine the trust of the civilians with police when they're auditing and showing laws that officers don't know, they should know, and see these practices happening in real time. And so obviously, officers being better prepared or equipped to deal with these situations, because they can be pretty much like, some of them can be pretty vague or aggressive, and it's all to catch them. So, but also at the same time, it's obligation and responsibility to know your job. So.
Yeah, and I think for us, what I get from the deputy sheriffs is not so much as far as feeling like it's an issue or problem, because again, we actually have body worn cameras, and that's probably been one of the greatest things in helping us to address. So when we tell somebody, hey, you're being audio or video recorded as well, we actually have YouTube video, and I can give you, he's now a lieutenant, Perriello. gentleman tried to bait him in reference to something. And you'll see he's just as calm, talking to him, letting the gentleman say, whatever he needs to say, and he's giving him a response back. And I think a lot of times our deputies are in that same mode. So when we look at a lot of any issues that come from being discourteous, it's not with our interactions and them doing that, because I think a lot of our deputies feel comfortable now. Hey, you're recording me, but I'm also recording you. And the fact that I know that I'm recording you, I understand that, hey, what I'm saying to you, I need to be as respectful as possible. I think the other times when you see citizens asking questions or trying to put deputies in, that a lot of times those are in emotional situations. And those are more of those defiant situations where we're in the house and you're trying to deal with that. And now it's more of the emotional. I asked you to do something, you're not going to do it. And now we're going back and forth. And this person is citing, Amendment 5 of the Constitution says, and then you have somebody going back and forth. And it's, those are what we see more from the younger folks. We're trying to make sure we train them up. And then also we have actual body worn camera analysts. They actually review the body worn cameras. We use that for training purposes. When I say we, not a gotcha moment, but it's, hey, this person did a wonderful job. Please look at how they did that. That's supporting them in reference to, hey, okay, this is how, we should be doing it. So from our end, that's how we're approaching it. And I mean, we haven't had a lot of, I'm going to say, instigation coming from that, and people reporting. Our folks don't mind it.
And to feedback with the sheriff, I totally agree. It's the same. I mean, we're in this society now where everything is, somebody sees something, everybody has a phone and all that, and they have body worn cameras. And surprisingly, if you took a poll or whatever, more officers and deputies, they actually like the fact that they put body worn cameras because they've exonerated them. They've harmed them. So again, you do get the people that bait you and all that. But the biggest thing is what I teach and tell officers, you have to really be emotional intelligence, right? So you can't let a temporary emotion allow you to make a long time bad decision. So those are those things that we tell them as well. And these are the things that we go through, and that's the training portion. Dealing with citizens, the sensitivity training, and all of those things. Yeah. That,
I don't know, we're sort of having, and this Maxwell and I are sort of talking about sort of ordering of the questions, and this may be a really one for the last like 6 minutes that we're here, but we're going to jump to question 13 because obviously it's in the moment. So we understand how Maryland county LEAs will typically collaborate with ICE on undocumented people in custody. But recent interactions around the country between U.S. citizens and ICE have blurred the lines on federal law enforcement and constitutional rights violations. How have your offices been prepared to deal with a number of these situations? And
can I have that? Can I have that? So I just got back from a Major Cities Chief Conference in Los Angeles. And interestingly enough, first of all, these ICE issues and interactions, they're civil, they're not criminal. We, as a police department, let me start by saying, sir, we don't get involved in those. Now, we don't engage in it. We have a training bulletin that goes out to our officers, and just sent it out again, letting them know that we do not participate in any of the ICE activities. We know that there's been several in Langley Park. We saw them on the news and all that. Now, I will tell you and give you an example of an extent. Now, and we've also held town halls up in Councilwoman Monica Fisher and her community, sheriff, all of us. So we're talking to our community, let them know we do not engage in the ICE activities. We're not a part of that. We don't collaborate with them. We don't go out here and seek people. We had an incident where there was a vehicle accident, and I believe the gentleman was a Hispanic male, and ICE was over there waiting, and our officers were handling the report, and hey, what's those guys' names? Not telling them. Well, we think we got a detainer for them. Okay, well, we're not telling you. We're not a part of it. They had a vehicle accident. We're here for the vehicle accident. Now, we cannot impede or obstruct their actions. We can't. So once we're done with that, if we walk off and clear and then they interact with them, that's what it is. And at times they see those two vehicles where they see us there and they see ICE and they immediately think it's a collaboration. It's not. We do not collaborate with ICE. I'm here to tell you again, we do not collaborate with ICE. And I bring up LA because the LA sheriff out there, Luna, he and I were having this conversation. And there was a restaurant that the ICE officers were eating at, which they're very brave because I wouldn't eat in anybody's restaurant doing what I'm doing and not think that I get the I'd always bring my own food. They live it on the edge anyway, right? So what happened was these people in the restaurant called the sheriff's office because they wanted the ICE officers removed from the restaurant. And they're like, we're not doing that. Right. No, well, not to mention the fact, I mean, are they routed? No. Okay, they're at the table, they're on the food. We have no right to go in there and remove them. Now, of course, 5 minutes later, they get a call. Now a riot is broken out because the people in the restaurant want to go on, and now you have this. The sheriff's office arrived on scene. They preserved the order in peace, moved the people along, got the people back out of the way, and allowed those ICE officers to get out of there. That's what we'll do. But we're not moving ICE from anything, but we're not participating in any of their activities. So
I think because what's going to happen? How would they call my house? Ain't nobody there. Everybody going in America. And I won't open up the door, so I call with y'all. Y'all can come. So they just arrest me.
Well, here's the thing. So supposedly, it's not supposed to happen. They should have it. Well, I know. Supposedly, there's supposed to be an order for you to be right.
So,
it's supposed to be an order.
Yeah, but that's one of the biggest issues. So we're very unique when you talk about dealing with ICE, only because we have a large Hispanic community here in Prince George's County, but also we're a minority community as well. A lot of what you see, especially throughout the state, like the 9 sheriffs, the reason why they were so upset, the sheriff himself has the ability to sign into that agreement in which we actually enforce ICE detainers. There's several of us that we not even getting involved in, we have more internal things to where, hey, y'all do what y'all do, but that's not what we're going to do. So we don't get involved with that. It's also different because those sheriff's offices and where they are, they also have the jails. The sheriff's responsibility in many of the places, they have the jails. Well, you do understand when you get into these agreements and you actually detain those ICE detainees, you get federal money. So you actually get money that actually comes in. So now you're messing with my money. And hey, my community wants that. And when you look at that, it is a community that they're not real big communities of minorities. So it's a little bit different mindset in what they're doing. But say again. No, we're not in agreement. I didn't sign into that agreement. I wasn't going to sign it. I told him as such. And then with Prince George's County actually signing the agreement, we have no involvement. So from the sheriff's office here in Prince George's County, our involvement really comes in how they enforce, especially with the courthouse. They were using the courthouse as a hub so that the easiest way that you can actually detain somebody or grab somebody is if once they come to the courthouse. Once you come to the courthouse, I know you don't have any weapons. I know that you are going to be here because you may be coming here for either a family member or for something for yourself. And then 2, if all hell breaks loose, I got all law enforcement. So all they see is police on the back of my vest or uniform, and they see somebody fighting or dealing with that. So we've had people in situations where ICE have tried to detain individuals inside the courthouse. And, we had to let them know that that's not going to happen. There's a different way. Even corrections has had to address and deal with them. Individuals that have completed or have served their time, depending on the charge, is depending on if the Department of Corrections will let them know these individuals will be released. Small misdemeanors and stuff like that, no. But if it was somebody who was just coming from prison or anything else for a homicide, then those are the things that ICE will be notified in reference to. So when people say, hey, we completely out, no, that's not always the case, but we do not operate with them. We do not serve any of their orders. Again, it's an administrative order, and it's a different type of judge. It's not a judicial judge where it's dealing with the immigration judge. So it's completely different when you look at these orders and doing that. And nobody's risking life and limb in order to try to do something like that, especially if that person's not committed a crime here in the county.
And also we've gone as far as like I know they've always talk about like those vests and they just see police on it. We have made sure that all of our placards say Prince George's County Police on them. So we're not ICE, we're not a part of ICE, we're not some Gestapo or some nefarious unit operating in the city's capacity, none of that. We're the Prince George's County Police Department. We do not force or deal with ICE.
As the government is signing the law. And that.
Yes, but it's with certain criteria. So like it's basically our cooperation with ICE is not going to be more proactive. And in certain situations, you still, will deal with, it's a federal agency. You still will deal with federal agency, but we're not actively going out and responding and giving any information. That's what that bill stands for.
Like I said, we're on the same.
And it doesn't allow the sheriffs also to get involved in that agreement. And that's why you saw them up in Annapolis and on TV, because now they're mad and saying, hey, well, they still gonna come here and we still gonna wind up doing this because it's gonna be kind of hard to enforce and tell them that, hey, they can't. Who you gonna get to cite them or lock them up?
So thank you for that. I think Sheriff Powell really wants to get to one of the most important questions on the questionnaire. So question 14 belongs to you, Sheriff.
Great. Question 14 would be, do you have any questions of us? And I do have some questions. So in looking at this, and I know we're still going through this whole process and the ups and downs, but in your mindset, because our concern on our end, and I'm gonna say from my end, because I'm not going to speak for the union's perspective, because again, they're definitely supposed to advocate for the deputies. But we have now a culture of everybody just wants to go to board, and they want to go to board, some based off of, I guess, the criteria for some of the categories. We've seen some categories or some offenses that we're trying to just get an understanding of where we are as far as how we view this. And like even with some of the questions, do you guys look at retention? Are you looking at, where, if okay, this agency is short, you don't want to lose this officer because of this, or hey, we want to give that person a second chance. And I'm always a person of second chances, but I'm just trying to understand some of the consistency of where we are, because there's some things where it's like it's now creating. We got people going to board for written reprimand, and it's like I'm gonna go to written reprimand because I know if I get hit 9 times out of 10, it may be something different, or either I can wind up and correct me if I'm wrong.
So I understand what you're saying, and I think that is a separate question for the police accountability board. That's more of the administrative charging committee.
I know y'all work hand in hand together. That's what
I'm saying, right? But what I'm saying is I don't want to take up the time with that. Okay. So we can have a separate conversation. Because I think for that question, we want to make sure, while I can't speak for them, I want to make sure we involve everybody else on this. So one of the things that I can say that I have personally been advocating for is that any officer that is exonerated, it should be removed.
Yeah.
Period, point blank. Yeah. For an example, I've seen a tremendous amount of cases where the officer may pull up a citizen for 10, comes along with that complaint, discrimination. You can't discriminate against someone if you can't see who's inside the vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. So I've seen a lot of those things, but again, I think that even in your credit reporting, that if it comes off in 7 years, if you've been exonerated, it should be, because for an example, the issue that I had with that was that very example that I used, that if an officer pulls over citizens because of dog tail, and they recover weapons or people with warrants, if it seems that there's a pattern of discrimination, somebody may pull that officer's file like, oh, he's an officer that just discriminates, but he's been exonerated. That story's not told. So that's why I think that it should be recorded.
So you come to Annapolis with us as we try to
do whatever is best for the community and the quality of life. I'm always that's what we need to be. Yeah. That was 14. We got 14.1. No, I'm just kidding. Really? Okay. Chief Nichols, I did not mean to get yourself. Do you have?
I don't have a question.
Okay.
I do just want to make a statement. If nobody said it, I do appreciate the work that you guys do. there are times where people may have thought that something of this magnitude was, again, you know us, don't want change, don't like the way things are. But I think that having, just like anything else, we have a community-based group that's here, given the chance to actually look at what the people that serve them do or don't do. Gives everybody an opportunity to come together and see this is, everybody on different perspectives to make us better. So again, I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing. I'm glad that we have this partnership.
So I know that we had, what I speak about, and they grew up in DC, so we had Mary Berry, Mayor for life. So you're just going to be law enforcement officer for life. You don't have a choice.
I guess.
Yes. So thank you. I think that's it. And if we have any questions after that, we'll just send something out. But again, I really want to thank you guys for taking this opportunity because I have met with each and one of you. So I know how important this process is. And thank you for communicating that to your officers as well. Chief Nichols, I see you all over the place, right? Everything. So, and I work closely with you as well. So I understand that this is very important to you. And I thank you so much. And thank you to the union reps that came out and everything. This was really good. Unfortunately, I believe that our Zoom went down. Oh, it's back up?
No, she's still good though.
Oh, right.
I'm still
So
straight.
one of the things I just wanted to make sure is that we capture the questions and just the answers to put them in the minutes. So they won't do that. But again, thank you. And we'll exchange. So one last thing, when I get a picture, then we show the public that we've done this. Sheriff, don't be so quick to jump up for the picture.
No, I got
No.
I want to make sure.
So,
And just so you know, the chief actually does recommend make, but I love to have a meeting also.
Okay.
Yeah, be careful. It's a little tight.
So just for the good of the order, I'd like to go ahead, if someone can make a motion to adjourn. So we can put that in.
We're channeling the story. You got here.
Right. Motion to adjourn made by Brian, Mrs. Brian Tedford. It was seconded by Dr. Coleman. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Shouldn't be. Thank you. Adjourn at 8:40 p.m. Thank you so much. Thank you, staff. Thank you.
I'm just curious.